I used to think my life was steady, predictable, and safe, and for the longest time, I convinced myself that safety was the same thing as happiness. I had a partner who cared for me, a home that looked perfect from the outside, and a routine that kept everything in order. Yet deep down, the silence between us grew louder every day. Conversations that once flowed freely had shrunk into quick exchanges about bills, groceries, or schedules. We were two people living side by side rather than together, and I felt myself fading into the background of my own life. I never dared to admit it aloud, but I was hungry for something, attention, excitement, maybe even validation, that had been missing for far too long. The emptiness began to gnaw at me in quiet moments. I found myself scrolling endlessly online, looking for distraction, reading other people's stories, even lingering in places where I could observe raw honesty about relationships, heartbreak, and betrayal. At first it was only curiosity, a way to escape the monotony, but the more I read, the more I recognized myself in those confessions. I felt less alone, yet at the same time more restless. I asked myself dangerous questions. What if I let go just once? What if I pushed the boundaries I had built my whole identity around? I told myself it would only be an experiment, a way to test limits, nothing more. The shift started so quietly that I almost didn't notice. I replied to messages I normally would have ignored, engaged in conversations that went beyond safe small talk. The first time I did it, I felt my heart pound as though I had been caught stealing something, but instead of stopping, I let it continue. The attention felt intoxicating. Someone was curious about me again, wanted to know my thoughts, my feelings, my hidden sides. It reminded me of who I used to be before the weight of routine dulled everything. I didn't think of it as betrayal in that moment. I thought of it as rediscovering a part of myself. But as the exchanges deepened, I knew I was stepping closer to a line I could never uncross. Each word I typed carried both a thrill and a sting of guilt. I wasn't blind to what I was doing, I was fully aware, and that made it even more dangerous. What began as curiosity was transforming into something heavier, and I felt myself being pulled forward with no intention of resisting. The first time we met face to face, my chest tightened as if I were about to be exposed. I told myself it was only a conversation, nothing serious, but my body betrayed me, my hands trembled, my pulse raced, and I could feel anticipation creeping through me like fire. I had lived so long in a haze of routine that even sitting across from someone new felt like breaking free from a cage. I noticed how intently he listened, how his eyes lingered on me, how every word I spoke seemed to matter. That small difference was enough to shake me. For years I had craved that kind of attention, and suddenly it was laid before me, effortless and unfiltered. As minutes slipped into hours, I realized I was no longer thinking about right or wrong. I was intoxicated by the way my laughter came easily, how I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. When he leaned closer, the air between us shifted. My mind screamed at me to pull back, but I didn't. I told myself it was harmless, just a fleeting moment of closeness. Yet deep inside I knew it was more than that. It was the first step over the line I once believed I would never cross. The touch of his hand on mine was electric, so simple but loaded with meaning. It carried the thrill of being wanted and the weight of a decision I could never take back. My thoughts scrambled, a mixture of excitement and guilt twisting inside me. I pictured the life I was betraying, the trust one was fracturing, but the pull of the moment drowned out everything logical. His kiss came quickly, and though it was only a kiss, it carried a flood of emotions, desire, danger, validation. I didn't stop him. I didn't want to. Walking away afterward, my mind replayed every detail with a mix of shock and exhilaration. I should have felt nothing but shame, but instead I felt alive, like I had woken from years of numbness. The reality of what I had done lingered at the edges of my mind, but I pushed it aside. I told myself it was just one time, a secret I could lock away, a thrill I could control. But deep down, I already knew it wouldn't end there. Once the boundary had been crossed, there was no going back. After that first step, secrecy became my second skin. What began as a single thrill evolved into a pattern I didn't think I was capable of maintaining. I learned how to tell small lies that sounded harmless, how to cover gaps in my time with believable excuses, how to silence my conscience long enough to enjoy what I was doing. Each meeting brought a surge of energy, a sense of escape, as though I was living a parallel life no one could touch. In one world I was dependable, predictable, steady. In the other I was reckless, alive, desired. The contrast was dizzying, and I craved it more than I wanted to admit. There were moments with him that felt like stolen pieces of a dream. The way he looked at me with hunger and curiosity, the way his words melted into my skin, it was intoxicating. I forgot the weight of responsibility, the dull ache of neglect, the years of feeling invisible. With him, I wasn't just someone's partner or caretaker of routines. I was a person who still had fire inside, a person who could make choices purely for herself. That feeling was addictive, and I held on tightly, even as guilt scratched at the edges of my thoughts. But the guilt never vanished completely. At night, when I lay beside the person I was betraying, I felt the silence heavier than ever. I noticed the lies piling up, the missed calls, the unexplained absences. I rehearsed stories in my head to explain where I had been, convincing myself they sounded natural. Still, a small part of me feared the mask slipping, the truth spilling out. That fear only added to the adrenaline. The more dangerous it became, the more alive I felt. Every glance at my phone carried a risk. Every sudden smile I tried to hide threatened to betray me. I could sense the tension in the air at home, the unspoken suspicion beginning to form, but I pushed it down. I wasn't ready to stop. I told myself I had control, that I could balance both worlds, that no one would get hurt as long as I was careful. Deep inside, though, I knew the walls were thin and the cracks were already showing. It was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. The day everything unraveled didn't arrive with a dramatic explosion. It came quietly, like a shadow slipping into the room. A misplaced detail, a slip in my routine, and suddenly the balance I thought I controlled collapsed. Questions started, simple ones at first, but layered with suspicion. I tried to answer calmly, pretending nothing was wrong, but my voice betrayed me, my eyes avoided contact, and the silence between us became unbearable. Deep down I knew the truth was bleeding through the cracks, and denial wouldn't save me. When the confrontation finally happened, there was no screaming, no chaos, just the heavy weight of disappointment and betrayal hanging in the air. In that moment, the thrill that once consumed me turned into shame so sharp it was almost physical. The look on their face stripped me bare, exposing everything I had hidden. I wanted to explain, to justify, to claim it had been about feeling alive, but no excuse could erase the hurt I caused. Every word I tried to form felt hollow, every gesture meaningless. The person who once trusted me now looked at me as if I was a stranger. And maybe I was, because I had become someone I never thought I could be. The fallout was immediate and irreversible. Trust shattered, respect gone, love bruised beyond repair. I told myself at the beginning that I was only testing limits, but what I really did was burn the foundation of the life I had built. The other person, the one who made me feel alive, suddenly felt like a reminder of everything I destroyed. The fire that had seemed thrilling now scorched everything in its path, leaving only ashes behind. Looking back, I realized how quickly a single decision spirals into a chain of consequences you cannot undo. The risk I convinced myself I could control grew into a storm I wasn't prepared to face. The validation I craved came at a cost far greater than I imagined. In chasing the feeling of being seen, I lost the one person who once chose to see me every day without conditions. I thought I was strong enough to play with temptation and walk away untouched, but instead I discovered that some lines, once crossed, leave scars that never fade. And no matter how much time passes, the echo of that choice follows me, a reminder that some limits are not meant to be tested.